Syria refugees, UN warns of extreme poverty in Jordan. Syrian refugee woman Amr cooks in a kitchen in her rented house in the Nazal neighborhood in Amman, Jordan, on May 30, 2012. The study focused on the conditions of those living in rural or urban areas. Continue reading the main story. Syria's war. Guide to conflict. Civil war in numbers watch. Mapping war. Is rise. The UN Refugee Agency has urged the international community to help alleviate the desperate living conditions of Syrian refugees living away from Jordan's main camps. 1 in 6 of them live in extreme poverty, a UN study says. It warned that unless the international community provided more support, the conditions of the refugees would only get worse. More and more of them were relying on outside assistance, it said. The study covered the more than 500,000 Syrian refugees who live in urban or rural areas outside the main refugee camps of Jordan. UN Refugee Chief Antonio Guterres said their problems had been made more acute because of freezing winter temperatures and electricity shortages. UN High Commissioner for Refugees Antonio Guterres speaks during press conference in Amman, January 14, 2015. Mr. Guterres says Jordanian generosity needs to be matched by massive support from the international community. Mr. Guterres is meeting Jordanian officials and donors to coordinate efforts to improve living conditions for the refugees and the communities who are hosting them. The UN's Living in the Shadows report says it is based on data from home visits to almost 150,000 Syrian refugees living outside of camps in Jordan in 2014. 2/3 of refugees across Jordan, it says, are now living below the national poverty line, while 1 in 6 refugee households is in abject poverty, with less than $40, £26, €34, for each person every month. Almost half of the households researchers visited had no heating, the report says, while a quarter had unreliable electricity and 20% had no functioning toilet. Rental costs accounted for more than half of household expenditures, with refugee families being forced to share accommodation with others to reduce costs. A picture taken on March 8, 2012, shows Syrian refugee Abu Osama and his sons in Ramtha city, north of Amman. A file picture showing a Syrian family living in Ramtha city, north of Amman. Unless the international community increases its support to refugees, families will opt for ever more drastic coping strategies, Mr. Guterres said. More children will drop out of school to work and more women will be at risk of exploitation, including survival sex. Massive need. Jordan currently hosts a registered Syrian refugee population of about 620,000, with around 100,000 living in camps. The UN report said that as the Syrian conflict approached its 5th year, many refugees were becoming increasingly dependent on assistance, with Jordan's resources and infrastructure being stretched to the limit. The UN Refugee Agency, UNRWA, said it was providing monthly cash assistance to 21,000 of the most vulnerable Syrian families, or 14% of the Syrian refugee population living outside camps. As of the end of 2014, more than 10,000 additional Syrian refugee households had been identified as eligible for such assistance but, due to lack of funds, could not be helped, it said. Overall, the report's findings make it clear that any further reductions in the current levels of support will have immediate and serious consequences for Syrian refugees in Jordan, the UNRWA said. The report said the generosity of the Jordanian people and the government needs to be matched by massive support from the international community.